Derby County have made some terrible signings over the course of their history, but who are the top 5 most devastating signings Derby County have made in their most recent era? Now, starting off at number 5, we go with none other than Raul Albentosa, who is currently 36 years old without a club. He signed for Derby back in, I believe, 2016, where he made 9 appearances for the first team and 1 appearance for Derby County's under-21s, and in a injury-hit spell, never really found his feet at Derby County, despite being one of the best defenders in La Liga before he joined Derby County. Now, there's a lot of rumours regarding this transfer of Raul Albentosa, which I believe was to be within the region of £600,000, but there's also a lot of reports saying that it was a free transfer. Now, for me, Raul Albentosa came to Derby County with a lot of hype as being one of those highly rated defenders in La Liga, but just never really hit the heights. There was a lot of interest in him when he joined Derby County, but it just didn't work. Now, there's a lot of rumours regarding his time at Derby County and why he suffered such an injury-hit spell, with some people claiming it was down to not having the right insoles, some people having some other opinions as well. Now, for me, Derby County have always struggled in that foreign transfer market, and that's why Raul Albentosa comes in at number 5 on this list for Derby County. Now, at number 4 comes a striker by the name of Connor Salmon, a player who is still playing in League One of the Scottish divisions for Alloa Athletic. He's 38 years old and actually did go on to make 10 appearances for Ireland. I believe most of them were probably why he was at Derby County, but for Derby County he was signed for a fee within the region of £1.2 million. He made 90 appearances over the course of 4 seasons, scoring 13 goals, collecting 8 assists. Now, some of you may think, oh, that's not bad, but Connor Salmon was supposed to come in and be sort of the key to Derby County, making sort of a proper playoff push, and ultimately he was never ever that man, and he just always looked very unorthodox, and it never really seemed to work at Derby County. I believe he was signed by Nigel Clough, then a few months later, obviously Nigel Clough was replaced by Steve McLaren, and Steve McLaren brought in his own bodies in that forward line and really got the most out of Chris Martin, which obviously meant that Connor Salmon fell to the wayside and ended up moving away from Derby County. Now, obviously went on to make 10 caps at international level, so he can't have been that bad of a player, but how this bold-headed man ended up leading the line for Derby County as often as he did, playing 90 games for Derby, I will never know, because he is probably one of the worst strikers I have ever seen at Derby County, and there is a lot more that he needs to do to convince me he doesn't quite get to the top of this list. But who is next at number 3? Now, coming in at number 3 is Abdul Kamara. He is currently 35 and had to retire in 2018 due to a found heart condition, which obviously stopped him from playing. He appeared 14 times for Guinea, scoring 3 goals, and at Derby County he came in with a lot of promise, and there was a lot of hype around the signing of Abdul Kamara, but he made 26 appearances, scoring once, collecting 3 assists across the course of his career at Derby County. Went on to then go and play at a range of different French clubs, but ultimately was never ever really good enough for Derby County. Didn't ever really show that sort of top level that we sort of anticipated to come from him, and obviously scored, I think it was against Leicester City in a cup game, but you can correct me down in the comments because it might have been West Brom. But he was very disappointing for Derby County. He was signed for a fee in the region of £1.4 million, and 1 goal and 3 assists coming back from that just was not good enough for obviously the international footballer. Now, obviously, did he go on and have a decent career playing for a bunch of French clubs? He absolutely did. But at Derby County, it just did not work. Now, who comes in at number 2? You will probably not guess this one, but I have gone with the Polish winger of Kamil Jóźwiak. Now, Kamil Jóźwiak was highly spoke about over the course of social media before he joined Derby County, with a lot of highlight packages, a lot of data being spun about over the course of social media after his time with Lech Poznan. But ultimately, when he came to Derby County, it just didn't seem to work. I think everything that's sort of linked in with obviously COVID going on, Derby County going into administration, the deal just never really sort of settled, and Camille himself never really settled at Derby County. Now, he was bought by Derby County for a fee in the region of £3.5 million, and he did go on to make 22 appearances for Poland, obviously currently still playing in the second tier of Spanish football for Granada, and he is only 27 years of age. But the heights that Derby County anticipated he would make never came through. And I think a lot of it, and I have to say, a lot of it comes down to the disallowed goal versus Nottingham Forest, in my opinion. That was, I think it was his debut or his second game, and scored a really nice goal on the half turn against Nottingham Forest, which would have given Derby County 3 points. And the goal was chalked off, and he then sort of went through a bad spell of confidence, really, and never sort of really found his form again. And it was very disappointing. He played 61 times for Derby, 1 goal, 4 assists, 9 yellow cards, and it just didn't really work. Now, Camille and Christian Bielik were very good friends at Derby County, and both players ended up leaving around the same period, really. whcih left around March of, I think it was 2021. Bielik obviously left that summer, and it was disappointing to see whcih left, because I always thought he showed some bright spells, but ultimately never really got the goals or the assists to prove that he deserved to be at Derby County, and that is why he was moved on to pastures new, where he went to Charlotte over in the MLS. 4 goals and 12 assists for him there, and then moved to Granada, where he's not scored yet, but he has 2 assists to his name. Now, who is going to be the player who is at the top of this list of biggest fail signings of Derby County history? And for me, it goes to Nick Blackman. Obviously 35 years old now. He's been without a club since July of 2021, but I don't think he ever announced his retirement from football, and obviously made 6 appearances for Barbados despite being born in Barry. But that's one of those things. We'll just ignore that. He scored 3 times for Barbados as well, by the way. Now, Derby County made this signing for around £2.8 million from Reading. And at the time, Nick Blackman was top of the Championship scoring charts, was scoring for fun week in, week out. The system at Reading just really seemed to complement him. And he was playing sort of as a centre forward off the right-hand side occasionally for Reading. And then he came to Derby County, and we played him as a number 9, we played him on the left, we played him on the right, we played him as a second striker. Just didn't work, did it? He played 29 times for Derby County, scoring once, which I believe was a penalty, if I remember rightly, and just never seemed to hit any sort of decent level. Then went on to go and have a couple of spells with Maccabi Tel Aviv, and I think after playing for Derby County, he went to a couple of other clubs as well. But ultimately, he was such a poor signing for Derby County. I'm not entirely sure how he actually ever made the move to Derby, if I'm completely honest. Don't get me wrong, at Reading, 113 games, 22 goals, 5 assists. I believe 12 of those 22 goals came in the first 10-15 games of the season where Derby County signed him, and it obviously gave Stephen Pearce and Mel Morris a sort of a bad look of the transfer window, really, because they spent £2.8 million on a player that only scored once for Derby County. What a disappointing bunch of signings these have been. Now, let me know your thoughts down in the comments on Derby County's worst signings you have ever known. Obviously, some of you may put in the likes of Omar Mascarell. You may even have some other names on that list, the likes of F.A. Ambrose as well. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you have not done so already, make sure you hit the subscribe button, you turn on the notification bell, you hit the like button as well, and stay tuned for all of my latest Derby County content.